Hi there, my name's Dr. Marcus Bussey. I work at the University of the Sunshine Coast, and I'm here with Eireann Devlin, and I'm really thrilled to bring Eireann along because I've had the privilege of being Eireann's teacher on and off across her time at the university, and you nearly finished your education degree, and I'd just like to ask you a few big questions about where you might end up. So Eireann, first thing about education, I guess it tends to be rather realist-based. This is the real world. We've got to teach for the real world, right? Yeah. But I'd like to probe beneath that because I know that you went to a very special school as a young person. Your primary school was the River School, and so you had a holistic kind of education. Yes. Okay, and then you went into the state system, and then you've been indoctrinated by the education system of the university, which is of course preparing you for this real world. But I'd like to know, how do you see values-based education fitting into this, given that you have a taste of both sides and you're now going to go in 6 months' time and start teaching?
Yeah, so I think in terms of values-based education and being indoctrinated and having my learning be very much in a mandated curriculum, I've found that values-based education for me within that system is still centred around the child or the student. In my case, I'm high school. So centred around the student and very much focusing on how to facilitate the learning of that student to make them a citizen, a global citizen, as opposed to getting an A or getting a B or getting their standardised grades. In terms of values-based education, it is difficult bringing that into the mandated curriculum because it's very much focused on achievement and achievement standards, and that's verbatim what it says in.
But of course, the education system as is actually values-based. But those values don't necessarily resonate with mine or yours. Yeah, looking at values in that sense, definitely. Yeah. I just wonder too if when we're looking at values-based, I'm not sure how to phrase it. It feels very structured in a non-organic sense, the curriculum right now. Yeah. It's a nice way of putting it, that non-organic, because I guess what you're talking about is the relational dimension to learning, which can bring meaning and purpose, yeah?
Yeah.
So in your you've just come back from a prac, can you think of a time when you actually broke through the relational to either as students or with a class?
Look, this last prac was really interesting in terms of dynamics because you have a supervisor with you 24/7, and often when you're getting to know a student, you get pulled up a bit in terms of don't relate with the students, and being a young educator myself and being not so far from their age, I found it really difficult to connect with the students and feel comfortable enough to, just connect with them and be able to push past what they needed to learn and what I needed to achieve in order to meet my requirements as a pre-service teacher. So I found that a lot of my prac was me just trying to get through the prac so that I can then eventually have my own classroom and bring my values in an ethical way into the classroom. Yeah,
I think it's important to be pragmatic like that. It really does help. So being practical, being realistic, knowing that there are certain parameters. Yeah. So when you've got another teacher in the room with you, you have to play by their rules to some extent.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. So you're teaching in the social sciences and those sorts of areas, right? History and English, would it be?
Yeah, history and English.
So another question then is, we talk a lot about critical capacity, critical literacies in the social sciences. Yeah. But it's often been that we might be critical of poverty, but we forget to look at affluence, for instance. Yeah. Do you have a broader picture of how you might take that project forward in your own teaching?
Yeah, this affluence versus poverty at the moment in terms of what you criticise. I've found that in my social circles, my peers are a lot more aware of our social system at the moment unethically favouring or supporting affluence. And I mean, we're both wearing clothes. I know that mine aren't necessarily ethically produced, so I know that I'm also supporting that system. And when it comes to the classroom, being a pre-service teacher again, I haven't had a chance to really tackle definitely critical thinking is a part of every lesson. I hope it's a part of all of my lessons. And in terms of just critical thinking and using that for all of your activities and in your learning, but I'm not sure that we've necessarily really critiqued
the underlying structures, I guess, is what you're heading towards. Yeah,
definitely. Year 10 English at the moment has a strong focus on media.
Yep.
So that's, I guess, one very large structure that is being tackled in mainstream education.
Yep.
But in terms of, this criticism of people who are in a lower socioeconomic bracket, for me, is more not so much a education system issue. It just seems to be an everyday social issue outside of the classroom as well as inside.
Okay, so it's an assumed reality that then is the school system validates simply because it's a subsection of the broader society, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That makes sense. So I guess then we could talk about, and this is now an aspirational question, critical literacies. Because this is really behind what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
To help people be literate, not just in terms of numeracy and literacy, but in terms of broader social consciousness. Can you comment on that at all?
In terms of, in the classroom?
Yeah, I guess in the way you relate to your teaching. What are your aspirations in terms of enabling students to see the bigger picture?
Okay, yeah. I think myself, I was really fortunate in my upbringing where I have parents who I assume were critical thinkers. They hold very kind and open-minded beliefs, very holistic beliefs. So their value system has always just inherently almost gone against the grain, I guess, gone against those mainstream assumptions. And in terms of myself, it's funny when you think of trying to, I guess, recreate that upbringing, and just in my classroom, I would like there to be less assumptions or deconstructing of those assumptions in order. It's hard. Critical literacy is really difficult.
It's a big question, and that's why it's not tackled.
Yeah.
Because it is difficult. It's difficult. We have an instinct for it if you've been brought up like you have.
Yeah.
But to actually communicate it, to carry it forward into your teaching.
Yeah, without stepping on the toes of those above me, because often, I mean, they're indoctrinated by the same system.
Yeah, makes sense.
So in terms of critical literacy and bringing that into my classroom and just being a conscious global citizen, whether it be the literature you choose or the activities you partake in,
I mean, it's a journey. It's nothing that you don't suddenly do critical literacy, and nor do you just teach it like, this is a lesson on critical literacy. It's actually part of the framework of your evolution as a teacher. So I won't harass you about that anymore. But it is, to me, it's a key question, because you've had me as a teacher and you've seen me in action, and you've had other great teachers, especially from the time at the River School. But these people, this is a life thing, and I just wanted to know how you were thinking about it before you step into the arena on your own.
It's one of those topics that's really, what's the word? I'm quite overwhelmed by the idea of the impact I will have as a teacher.
Yeah.
And I just hope I can do that role justice. And so when I think about being able to set up my students as global citizens, it's quite overwhelming and intimidating. And I suppose my general goal is to just go in with an open mind and come at it with kindness and hope that my indoctrinated training and my own values, I guess, merge harmoniously.
Yeah. I mean, you need to know how to navigate the system.
Yeah,
you can't change the system
definitely.
by throwing stones at it from outside.
Yeah.
So that's why I teach at a university. You have to be in the system to actually have some form of impact.
Be able to
I
change
think.
it. Yeah,
definitely. So hopefully your impact is going to be positive.
Yeah.
Just
I
one
hope
last
so.
and probably short answer, because I don't know what time we got left, but probably not much. How do we live a virtuous life? So what are your thoughts about this concept of a virtuous life, particularly as a teacher? Can a teacher be virtuous if they're serving the system?
In a system. Okay. Ooh. I guess it's a really difficult question. I think every decision, even positive societal progress, there's always a double edge to it. One, every time you take a step forward, there's another step back. And so I guess there's that idea that you don't have to be the perfect person. You just have to be making conscious decisions to do better and making those or taking those baby steps. So I suppose as a new teacher, or hopefully in 6 months as a new teacher, that I can begin my journey doing what I know best at the time, and then continue to go in with that growth mindset and continue to, do my readings and continue to educate myself and do that through the community, and really engage with the community wherever I end up. We don't know. And then just as like a global citizen myself is just being more conscious about my decisions. Again, I'm supporting a system, and it's just making those or taking those baby steps in order to slowly do better. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, that's great. It is about baby steps. And thank you for plugging my course. I teach global citizens, and she took it. So I think we can end there, Eireann. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.